Hello everyone. So here we are with the next chapter, that is Landscape of the Soul by Nathalie Traore. Now, what is soul? Before that, what is a landscape? Landscape is generally, we termed it in the painting as a scene, natural scene or something like that. Soul. So landscape of the soul, essence. So that is somewhat is being discussed in the field of art, and uh, here in this article the author has tried to put up the differences between the European painting and the Asian painting, taking examples from various sources. A wonderful old tale is told about the painter Wu Daoji, who lived in the 8th century. His last painting was a landscape commissioned by the Tang Emperor Xuanzong to decorate a palace wall. The master had hidden his work behind a screen, so only the emperor would see it. For a long while, the emperor admired the wonderful scene, discovering forests, high mountains, waterfalls, clouds floating in an immense sky, men on hilly paths, birds in flight. So these were the various things which were there. And the emperor, when he started looking at that landscape, he started finding these things, discovering these things. At that moment, the painter said, "Look, sire," said the painter, "in this cave at the foot of the mountain dwells a spirit." The painter clapped his hands, and the entrance to the cave opened. The inside is splendid beyond anything words can convey. "Please let me show your majesty the way." The painter entered the cave, but the entrance closed behind him, and before the astonished, surprised emperor could move or utter a word, the painting had vanished from the wall. Not a trace of Wu Daoji's brush was left, and the artist was never seen again in this world. Now, such stories play an important part in China's classical education. Anecdote. These are known as anecdotes, small stories to provide some example for something, or to make people understand. The books of Confucius, a great Chinese philosopher, and Zhuangzi, another Chinese philosopher, are full of them. They help the master to guide his disciple in the right direction. Beyond the anecdote, they are deeply revealing of the spirit in which art was considered. Art was not something which was just painted, but the real essence, what people felt about the art, that was conveyed through this story. Contrast this story or another famous one about a painter who wouldn't draw the eye of a dragon he had painted for fear it would fly out of painting. So there was a painter who was afraid to draw the eye, because he felt that if he would draw the eye, if he would complete, it would fly away. Now, author wants to contrast this particular story with another old story of the place where he belongs to, with an old story from my native Flanders that I find most representative of Western painting. In 15th century Antwerp, A master blacksmith called Quentin Metzi fell in love with a painter's daughter. The father would not accept a son-in-law in such a profession. He fell in love with a painter's daughter. He was a blacksmith. And the painter did not like this relationship. So Quentin sneaked, went into his studio where he did his paintings and all that, sneaked without any information, silently, and painted a fly on his latest panel. Maybe he had kept uh, what you can say, the chart paper or whatever where he was going to paint, and it was there. And so Quentin, he just drew a fly with such delicate realism that the master tried to swat it away before he realized what had happened. It looked so real that even the master painter was deceived. He felt that it was a real fly, and with a piece of cloth, he tried to remove it from the panel. He was very much impressed. And so Quentin was immediately admitted as an apprentice into his studio as a learner. He married his beloved and went on to become one of the most famous painters of his age. Now these two stories, they illustrate what each form of art is trying to achieve. The difference has been presented through these two examples, through these two stories. A perfect illusionistic likeness in Europe. Illusionistic like, creating an illusion, trying to make someone feel that whatever has been drawn is real. That is what the European painting tries to achieve. Whereas the Asian painting, the essence of inner life and spirit in Asia. In the Chinese story, the emperor commissions a painting and appreciates its outer appearance. But the artist reveals to him the true meaning of his work, the essence, the soul. The emperor may rule over the territory he has conquered, but only the artist knows the way within. An emperor may be the master of the territory that he has conquered, he has acquired. But only an artist can show the spiritual path. Let me show the way, the Tao, a word that means both the path or the method, and the mysterious works of the universe. The painting is gone. The painting has disappeared. But the artist has reached his goal. He has reached that spiritual aspect, the inner aspect, beyond any material appearance. Now this particular paragraph, it talks about what is the basic difference between a Chinese landscape and a European landscape. A classical Chinese landscape is not meant to reproduce an actual view, as would a Western figurative painting. Whereas the European painter wants you to borrow his eyes and look at a particular landscape exactly as he saw it from a specific angle. Now, pay attention to this particular difference. A European painter wants you to borrow his eyes. The European painter wants you to look at his painting through his eyes, not your eyes. And from a specific angle, the way he saw it, the way he perceived it. Whereas the Chinese painter does not choose a single viewpoint. His landscape is not a real one. Real one means like likeness. And you can enter it from any point and then travel in it. So the Chinese painter gives you the liberty to look at the painting from any angle, and then on, on your own you enter it. The artist creates a path for your eyes to travel up and down and then back again in a leisurely movement. This is even more true in the case of horizontal scroll, in which the action of slowly opening one section of the painting, then rolling it up to move on to the other, adds a dimension of time which is unknown in any other form of painting. The scroll painting. In Buddhist tradition and in Chinese tradition, we know about this scroll painting. It is scroll, it is wrapped up, and you open it up and you go through it, and you have your own time. You go through it. You see at any part of the painting. You don't have to see it from the beginning. And this is not found in any other form of painting. It also requires the active participation of the viewer, who decides at what pace he will travel through the painting. A participation which is not only physical, it is mental as well. The Chinese painter does not want you to borrow his eyes, he wants you to enter his mind, think as he thought. The landscape is an inner one, a spiritual and conceptual space. It is not just a painting, it's the expression of spiritual aspect, conceptual aspect. This concept is expressed as san shui, which means mountain water, which used together represent the word landscape. More than two elements of an image, these represent two complementary poles, reflecting the Taoist view of the universe. The mountain is yang, reaching vertically towards heaven, stable, warm, and dry in the sun, while the water is yin, horizontal and resting on the earth, fluid, moist, and cool. The masculine and feminine representation. The interaction of yin, the receptive feminine aspect of universal energy, and its counterpart yang, active and masculine, is of course a fundamental notion of Taoism. What is often overlooked is an essential third element, the middle void, where their interaction takes place. Now, the author explains this middle void in a different way. This can be compared with the yogic practice of pranayama. What happens in pranayama? You breathe in, you stop for a while, you retain, and then you breathe out. Breathe in, retain, breathe out. The suspension of breath is void where the meditation occurs. The moment when you breathe in, when you are retaining, that is the point where meditation takes place. The middle void is essential. Nothing can happen without it. Hence the importance of the white, unpainted space in Chinese landscape. That is what is the middle void. Now this is also where man finds a fundamental role. In that space between heaven and earth, he becomes a conduit, link of communication between both poles of the universe. His presence is essential, even if it is only suggested. Far from being lost or oppressed by the lofty peaks, he is, in Francois Cheng's wonderful expression, the eye of the landscape. Now without man, this landscape is not important, because the man is the one who is a conduit, is a link between these both poles of the universe. And that's why Francois Cheng has described man as the eye of the landscape. Now, this is an excerpt from The Landscape of the Soul, Ethics and Spirituality in Chinese Painting. Now, this entire article focuses upon the spiritual aspect of the Asian painting. The author has taken example of the Chinese painting, and through that he has presented the difference between the European painting and the Chinese painting. European painting or the Western painting emphasizes on the illusion, whereas the Asian painting or the Chinese painting emphasizes on spirituality. European painter wants you to borrow his eyes. A Chinese painter wants you to enter his mind. And it is all very spiritual. It is not a real landscape in the real meaning. It is how you discover it. Whereas in European painting, you have to just see it and see what it is. It is the real presentation of the landscape, whereas a Chinese landscape gives you a chance to discover the various aspects on your own. You don't have to be dependent upon the painter. So that was the first part of the chapter.